Hello YouTube, this is Flights in Asia and I'm back with another video. This is part 2 to Who's Flying in Asia. Part 1 was released earlier this week, and if you haven't seen that video, just to recap, I discussed airlines flight schedules such as Garuda, Delta, and Cathay Pacific, which Cathay Pacific is increasing their flights, their plans for the month of June. I also mentioned the situation in Southeast Asia, with specifically in Vietnam and Thailand, where there are starting to introduce some flights gradually with the low-cost airlines. I forgot to mention though, airlines such as Vietnam Airlines and Thai Airways, which Thai Airways will not be operating until the end of the month. And later on in this video, I'll be discussing Vietnam Airlines. For that first part of the video, part 1 of Who's Flying in Asia, I will be linking that in the description below for you to watch. So let's get started with this new round of airlines that we just received more updates since the publishing of the first video. The first airline I will be discussing is Korean Air, which has announced plans to increase their capacity and reintroduce some new routes. So the first routes that we are going to be discussing are the inclusion by June to Washington, D.C., Seattle, Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Beijing, and Kuala Lumpur. And on the other hand, other cities such as Atlanta, San Francisco, Chicago, Paris, London, Singapore, these major metro cities are going to be seeing added capacity and frequencies. Korean Air has cut over 90% across its network and currently operating around 55 flights per week to 13 destinations. And by the end of June, they are eyeing the resumption of flights to 146 weekly to 32 destinations. Now, for example, these are gonna see daily services to Los Angeles, though Los Angeles will be, and New York also will see daily services, though these are gonna be like the exceptions. Most of these flights will be operating again, like similar to what we see the other airlines, between once or 6 times weekly. They're not gonna be every day here. So, for example, Seattle, when they resume it in June, we're gonna see it operate 3 times weekly. San Francisco, like I said, I mentioned earlier, it's gonna be increased from, I believe, 3 times weekly to 5. And also, we can look at the European schedule. London 3 times a week. Paris will get the most flights, 4 times weekly. Amsterdam and Frankfurt will get 3 times weekly, and the rest will all still be suspended. Currently, Korean Air's plans will not include the Middle East. Their flights to Dubai and also to the former Soviet states, the CIS countries, as well as to the Pacific Islands of Guam and also Auckland. They are not going to be operating flights. They're still going to remain suspended. Though we are going to be seeing some interesting development with Manila, since right now they are still operating daily, or the scheduled plan is daily flights to Manila with Korean Air 623. But as of now, right now, the situation in Manila, where they're placing the temporary ban on international arrivals, those flights are suspended this week, though we can expect those flights to be resumed. So here we go, more discussion on more flights that are going to see the increased capacity or resumption, some of them, while the rest of them, the majority of the network of Korean Air, will remain suspended. So with that said, with Korean Air, we're going to move on to Dallas-based American Airlines. And this is the updated Asia Pacific schedules. Now, American Airlines is looking to resume some of their flights to Hong Kong and Tokyo Haneda on July 7th, specifically from Dallas and Los Angeles. Though on this, you can see that on the Los Angeles to Hong Kong route, some of these routes actually will be inaugurated or resumed by October. So, and then also, like, their other flights to Auckland and Christchurch, they are moving them to winter 2021. So I'm pretty sure this is probably going to the start of 2021. And also the plans for Beijing and Shanghai from Los Angeles will be October's with the flights from Dallas. So they will start off with the flights to Hong Kong, Tokyo, Seoul, starting July 7th. Oh, I forgot about Seoul, by the way, from Dallas, Fort Worth. So that's American Airlines. United Airlines, actually an interesting case here, which I actually, much more interesting. So right now they're, from last update, they are operating flights from San Francisco to Tokyo and to Sydney from San Francisco again, and they're also operating a daily run between Guam and Honolulu, Hawaii, flight 200 and 201. This is probably the only flight going to Guam, by the way, I would assume, because most of the flights have been suspended, especially from the Korean-based carriers, and there is no sign on the island of Guam that, while the situation I've read in the news that it is getting better, so far the flights, there's no indication that, or more confirmation of the resumption of other flights, let's say from the Philippines or other flights to Japan and Korea. So I'll probably get that in like some other update when we get more information, because it's a very compelling destination. Now, United is actually looking to see some opportunities. So on a positive note, while this is a bare bones operation that they are operating in Asia and the Pacific, they are looking to seize an opportunity to operate cargo flights between Hong Kong and Singapore. And they recently just filed this on May 5 to the US DOT for these Fifth Freedom flight rights. And in it, they've actually alluded to the possibility later on in the future to operate passenger flights with this route. So depending on the rebound of passenger traffic, and I think with this, because this actually could be in lieu of the nonstop flights between Singapore and the US, which probably isn't gonna be that economically feasible to start off, especially when things start to pick up again, and then eventually they can bring it back. But for this is probably like their fallback plan to keep those slots in Singapore. So the next airline I'll be discussing is Japan Airlines. And I mentioned Japan with they are operating some domestic flights from Haneda and Itami to cities like Sapporo or Okinawa. And they are still operating the international flights from Narita and Haneda. So let's just take a look at some examples here. So from North America, we are seeing Japan Airlines operating select flights to Chicago and Los Angeles. But these are very limited again. These are not as a full schedule flights. And of course we have New York as well. Oh wait. Correction, Haneda, New York is suspended. There are Japan Airlines is also operating select services to cities like Bangkok, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, some of these Southeast Asian destinations, though on a very limited basis, including also Vancouver, London, select cities again. Um, and and also to add to that, there are plans for the Narita to San Francisco flight and Narita to Bengaluru that were originally scheduled for this year is now postponed until next year. So again, this is a very common trend that we're seeing with the airlines. The next airline I'll be bringing up now is Malaysia Airlines, and while their counterparts like Air Asia is starting to slowly resume flights, we are seeing Malaysia Airlines through their subsidiaries Firefly and Maswings operating limited interstate services. So for example, Firefly limited domestic services here on this notice on the airline, and Maswings between Sabah and Sarawak. And in this, they actually mention select services to some cities. So they are operating flights to Australia, which I'll actually bring up here. And these are the dates of operation, and this is actually until October 24. So select dates to Sydney to Kuala Lumpur and Melbourne as well. Very few limited flights, and this is probably not their full schedule. If you want to take a look at this later on, again, you can take a look at their website. The United Kingdom is actually a unique situation. They are gonna be operating, I believe, 3 times a week, starting July 1st, and then gradually increasing it to 5 times weekly. This is probably the wrong attachment, right? Okay, wait a minute. I think I got this wrong. Yeah, for the complete listing of Malaysia Airlines operations flights, their plans for the summer and later on this year, you can take a look at this. Um, okay, the next airline I'll be discussing now is so after Malaysia Airlines, it's Vietnam Airlines, and as of now, the international flights, as you could see here, the latest updates of their schedule will remain suspended until the end of the month. So we're looking at a June 1st for the international flights. Though it's going to be a different story with the domestic services, which we actually just received an update just a few days ago with the Vietnam Airlines Group, which covers the Vietnam Airlines domestic and Jetstar Pacific, their joint venture with Qantas, the budget airline, and Vasco. So we are seeing May 15, they are going to be operating some trunk routes and gradually increasing flights after that. And then after June 20, or no, at the start of June 2020, we're going to be recovering the domestic flight network. So you're going to see flights from Da Nang to Van Dan and Da Nang Can Thao, which is actually good news for the aviation industry, especially in Vietnam. And I think, again, like I said in the past, that Vietnam is probably one of those places to look into in the recovery process. Going to be a good example. So Vasco also. So again, mentioned briefly about the prevention and control measures that they're taking to prevent the spread of the virus. Take a look at this later on. Now, the last airline that I'll be mentioning is Taiwan's EVA Air, which we just got this on routes online. And majority of the routes will be from Taipei, Taiwan, and there will be around 2 routes from Songshan, the other airport of Taipei, and there will be operating one flight from Kaohsiung, which is the Kaohsiung Shanghai Pudong. These flights will be operating between 1 to 3 times a week, depending on, and I think most of these flights will be going to select cities. So again, there are core cities that they get the most traffic to. Now, interestingly enough, that there are other routes that they're planning to operate on, like Houston, scheduled on May 8th. And then we have now they are looking, I believe, to resume Hanoi May 2022 for Ho Chi Minh. So good news that they're actually starting to bring in some flights on EVA Air again, Seattle, May 25, once weekly. So these are going to be small, but these are the baby steps that these airlines will have to take, and similar to their counterparts in other parts of the world, we're not going to be getting to those levels of that we had before the pandemic. But I do believe that if the airlines do it right, and I do believe even with the infections, the risk of infections, I think people still want to travel. I'll take measures like the face mask and all, and then varying airlines will introduce their own measures. And I think eventually we could see this maybe. Now I'm a bit more optimistic. I know some people will say like 2 years. This I think we could recover domestically, and then international routes, depending on the entry restrictions that get eased. I hope they do, because I think that's gonna be too hard on economies who really want to bring in tourists and potential revenue for their governments. There's an incentive not to restrict international travel for too long. yes, this is an emergency situation, and right now this is a situation that warrants it. But I think down the road we can't be doing this for like 6 months beyond to a year, because life has to go on. I think that's an important part, and I think these airlines, they want to get back to business. They want to get back to work. There's a lot of flight crew and a lot of pilots and a lot of workers who really depend on these airlines for their livelihoods, and it's really sad to see the current situation. And I hope you too, especially if you frequently travel for your work too. I mean, that's a whole other situation too, which I'm not gonna go. I'm pretty sure you have your own views on that, so I'll leave it at there. So again, core routes, we're seeing a recurring theme, bare bones operations. But I think with some of these news, there is some positive news that we are seeing some routes that are starting up, like from the first and second videos, and also airlines like United seizing some opportunities to carry cargo in Asia, which they haven't done in a while, or they haven't operated intra-Asia. That's the opportunity that I think they're looking to tap into. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this update, and I kind of made this off the cuff here, so it's kind of like me just speaking and rambling and just going over these news with you. So if you have any things that you want to take a look at, feel free to take a look at these airlines. That's about it. Thank you for watching. This has been Flights in Asia, highlighting the news and updates from the aviation and travel scene in the Asia Pacific. And if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget, if this is really good and spread the word about it, please feel free to share this video. That's about all. Have a great day.